The dust-stained letter trembled in Beatrice Elwood's hands as the town council's verdict echoed through the wooden hall of Silver Creek Banishment, effective immediately, for failure to pay her mounting debts. At 22, she found herself with nowhere to turn, her family's modest homestead seized, and her reputation in tatters as the prosperous mining town of 1873, Colorado, turned its back on those who couldn't keep up with its newfound wealth. "You have until sundown," Mayor Hargrove declared, his silver pocket watch glinting in the afternoon light as he snapped it shut with finality. "Silver Creek has no place for those who cannot contribute to its prosperity." Beatrice stood alone before the council table, her faded blue dress, once her mother's Sunday best, hanging loosely on her frame after months of barely scraping by. Since her parents' passing from the fever last winter, she'd tried everything to maintain the small farm they'd built. But the crops had failed, the well had nearly dried up, and the banker's patience had run thinner than the soil she'd stubbornly tilled. "Please," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "I only need until the end of summer." "The South Field might still. The decision is final," Hargrove interrupted, not bothering to look up as he gathered his papers. "We've been more than generous already. Silver Creek is growing, Miss Elwood. We need contributors, not burdens." The walk home, no, not home anymore, was the longest of Beatrice's life. The main street that had once felt so familiar now seemed hostile, with former neighbors averting their eyes as she passed. Only Mrs. Peterson from the general store had the decency to slip her a small bundle of provisions when no one was looking. "God be with you, child," the older woman whispered. "This town's forgotten its heart since they struck silver in the hills." With just a small satchel of belongings, and whatever food Mrs. Peterson had managed to give her, Beatrice stood at the edge of town as the sun began its descent behind the jagged peaks of the Rockies. The vastness of the landscape before her was both beautiful and terrifying. Towns were sparse in this part of the territory, and traveling alone was dangerous for anyone, doubly so for a young woman. She took one step beyond the town's boundary marker, then another, each footfall carrying her further from everything she'd ever known. Night would fall soon, and with it, the dangers of the wild. But moving forward was her only option now. As darkness settled across the land, Beatrice spotted the faint glow of a campfire in the distance. Approaching cautiously, she made out the silhouette of a solitary figure tending the flames. The sensible thing would be to avoid strangers, especially at night, but the dropping temperature and the howl of distant wolves made her reconsider. "Hello," she called out, keeping a safe distance. "I don't mean to intrude, but—" The figure turned, revealing a young man perhaps a few years older than herself. His face, partially illuminated by the fire, showed surprise rather than suspicion. "Madam," he said, rising quickly to his feet, "you shouldn't be out here alone after dark." His voice carried a slight southern drawl, but his eyes, scanning the darkness behind her, showed genuine concern. "I have no choice," Beatrice replied, suddenly feeling the weight of her circumstances. "I've been asked to leave town." The man studied her for a moment, then gestured to the fire. "I've got coffee and beans, not much, but you're welcome to share." That simple act of kindness nearly broke her composure. "Thank you, I'm Beatrice Elwood." "Noah Fairfield," he replied with a tip of his wide-brimmed hat. "Most folks just call me Fairfield." As she stepped into the circle of light, Noah noticed her small satchel and the exhaustion etched on her face. "Silver Creek?" he asked, nodding toward the distant lights of the town. "Yes," she answered, accepting the tin cup of coffee he offered. "Until today." "That town's been turning folks away since they found the silver vein last year," Noah said, returning to his spot across the fire. "Used to be decent people there." "They still think they are," Beatrice said softly. "They just believe prosperity is a sign of virtue now." Noah's laugh was short and without humor. "And poverty the opposite, I suppose." He stirred the small pot of beans. "Where are you headed?" The question hung in the air as Beatrice realized she had no answer. I don't know, she finally admitted. I have a distant cousin in Denver, but that's weeks away on foot. I'm heading to Willow Springs, Noah offered. It's a small ranching settlement about 4 days' ride from here. Nothing fancy, but they need a schoolteacher. The last one left for San Francisco. Beatrice's eyes widened slightly. I taught the younger children in Silver Creek before. She trailed off, not wanting to relive the moment when even that small income had been taken away when the town built a proper school and hired an educated man from back east. Well then, Noah said, as if it were the simplest solution in the world, seems like you've got somewhere to go after all. But I couldn't impose on your journey, Beatrice protested. Noah shrugged, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the fire. I've got an extra horse. Lost its rider to a card game in Leadville. Horse wasn't part of the bet, but the fella left it behind anyway. He looked at her directly. I'd welcome the company, Miss Elwood. Trail gets lonely. That night, Beatrice slept fitfully on a bedroll Noah had provided, her mind racing with the sudden change in her circumstances. When dawn broke over the eastern plains, she awoke to find him already up, preparing a simple breakfast and tending to 2 horses, a sturdy brown gelding and a smaller dappled mare. She's gentle, Noah said, noticing Beatrice eyeing the mare uncertainly. Name's Penny. Previous owner said she's good with inexperienced riders. I can ride, Beatrice assured him, though it had been years since she'd been on horseback. My father taught me as a girl. As they set out, the rising sun at their backs, Beatrice found herself studying her unexpected companion. Noah Fairfield was tall and lean, with sun-weathered skin that spoke of years outdoors. His clothes were worn but well-maintained denim trousers, a faded blue shirt, and a leather vest that had seen better days. The revolver at his hip and the rifle in his saddle holster marked him as prepared for the dangers of the trail, but there was an easiness to his manner that put her at ease. What takes you to Willow Springs? She asked as they rode side by side across the open country. Work, he replied simply. I do a bit of everything: ranch hand, horse breaking, hunting. Heard they needed help at the Double T Ranch outside town. He glanced at her. Before that, I was working silver in Leadville, but mining towns. He shook his head. They change a man, and not always for the better. By midday, they stopped near a small creek to rest the horses and eat a simple meal of jerky and hardtack. Noah seemed content with silence, but Beatrice found herself wanting to understand the man who had so readily offered help to a stranger. Have you always traveled like this? She asked. Noah took a moment before answering. Since the war ended, I was just a boy when I joined up, lied about my age, Confederate side. He said this last part with a slightly defensive tone. After Appomattox, there wasn't much to go back to in Georgia. Decided to head west, see what opportunities might come. And your family lost Pa in the war. Ma and my sisters moved in with an aunt in Charleston. A shadow crossed his face. Right when I can, but that's not often. Beatrice nodded, understanding the weight of family separation all too well. My parents came west when I was small. They had dreams of building something of their own away from the factories of Pennsylvania. For a while, we did well enough. What happened? Noah asked, though his tone suggested he'd already guessed. Father's health began failing 3 years ago. Mother and I kept things going, but then the fever took them both last winter. Beatrice swallowed hard. The bank was patient for a while, but when the crops failed this spring. She shrugged, trying to appear more resigned than she felt. Noah was quiet for a long moment. Town council didn't have to banish you, could have found you work, given you time. Silver Creek doesn't believe in charity anymore, Beatrice said. Not since the mine started paying out. Now it's all about who has the biggest house, the finest clothes. She looked down at her worn boots. I became a reminder of what they fear, ending up with nothing. They rode for the rest of the day through increasingly rugged country, the mountains to their west growing larger as they traveled northwest. Noah proved to be a patient guide, pointing out landmarks and sharing simple but practical knowledge about surviving in the wilderness. By the time they made camp that evening, Beatrice's muscles ached from the unaccustomed riding, but she felt a growing sense of confidence she hadn't expected. As days passed on the trail, a comfortable rhythm developed between them. Noah wasn't a talkative man by nature, but he answered Beatrice's questions thoughtfully and occasionally shared stories of his travels through the territories. She learned he was 26, had worked everything from cattle drives to gold panning, and carried a worn copy of Thoreau's Walden in his saddlebag, a gift from a schoolteacher who'd taught him to read as a young boy. On the third evening, as they camped beneath a massive cottonwood tree near a bubbling stream, Beatrice noticed Noah watching her as she combed her long brown hair, freed from its practical braid for the night. "What is it?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Just thinking you don't seem like someone who should have been cast out of anywhere," he replied honestly. "You're educated, hardworking, Silver Creek's loss." The simple compliment warmed her more than it should have. "Education means little when you can't pay your debts," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "Money's a poor measure of a person's worth," Noah said with unexpected vehemence. "I've known rich men not fit to clean a decent person's boots and folks without 2 cents to rub together who'd give you their last bite of food." "And which are you?" Beatrice asked, a small smile playing at her lips. Noah's laugh was genuine. "Oh, I'm the second kind, sure enough. Never managed to hang on to money for long." He poked at the campfire with a stick, sending sparks into the darkening sky. "But I sleep easy most nights." The next morning brought them to the edge of a vast meadow filled with wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. Beyond it, the trail wound through a pine forest that would take them the final distance to Willow Springs. "It's beautiful," Beatrice breathed, momentarily forgetting the circumstances that had brought her here. Noah nodded in agreement. "Different kind of wealth out here. One that can't be measured or mined or spent." They had just started across the meadow when Noah suddenly reined in his horse, his posture tense as he scanned the tree line ahead. "What is it?" Beatrice asked, instantly alert to the change in his demeanor. "Not sure," he murmured, his hand moving casually to rest near his revolver. "Thought I saw movement in those trees." They proceeded more cautiously, and Beatrice found herself holding her breath as they approached the forest edge. Suddenly, 3 riders emerged from the trees, blocking their path. Their unshaven faces and hard eyes immediately set Beatrice's heart racing. "Well now," the largest of the 3 men called out, his voice carrying across the meadow. "Looks like we got ourselves some company, boys." Noah positioned his horse slightly ahead of Beatrice's, his posture relaxed but alert. "Morning, gentlemen," he called back, his voice casual despite the tension Beatrice could feel radiating from him. "Fine day for riding." The men spread out slightly as they approached, a tactical move that wasn't lost on Noah. The leader, a burly man with a scar running through his left eyebrow, smiled without warmth. "Indeed it is. Been a while since we've seen travelers on this trail. Where might you folks be headed?" "Willow Springs," Noah answered simply. The scarred man exchanged glances with his companions. "Long ride. Dangerous country. Might be safer if you handed over any valuables you're carrying. Sort of a toll for safe passage." Beatrice felt a chill despite the warm morning sun. "These were highway robbers and possibly worse." Noah's voice remained steady. "Don't have much to share, friend. Just trail supplies and a few dollars between us. Hardly worth your trouble." The scarred man's gaze shifted to Beatrice, his eyes lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. "Oh, I don't know about that. Seems to me you're traveling with something quite valuable." Noah's hand moved to his revolver. "The lady's not part of any negotiation." The standoff lingered for several tense heartbeats. Beatrice could see Noah calculating their odds, 3 armed men against one, with her safety to consider. Now, the scarred man said, raising his hands in a placating gesture that didn't reach his eyes. "No need for unpleasantness. Perhaps we can." The crack of a rifle shot cut through the air, sending birds scattering from nearby trees. A chunk of earth exploded near the feet of the scarred man's horse, causing it to rear in panic. "Next one won't miss," called a new voice from the tree line to their right. Two riders emerged from the forest, a gray-haired man with a rifle and a younger man holding a shotgun at the ready. "Jacobs," the older man called out to the scarred leader, "thought we made it clear last month what would happen if you tried robbing folks on this trail again." The would-be robbers exchanged uncertain glances, clearly reassessing their situation. "Just having a friendly conversation, Marshal," the scarred man called back, his bravado noticeably diminished. "Ride on," the gray-haired man ordered, his rifle still aimed steadily. "Cross into Barton County again, and I'll have you in chains before sundown." With muttered curses and dark looks, the three men wheeled their horses around and galloped back the way they had come. The gray-haired man approached, lowering his rifle as he came alongside Noah and Beatrice. "Thomas Marshall," he introduced himself. "Sheriff of Willow Springs, this is my deputy, Sam Cooper." Noah relaxed his hand away from his weapon. "Noah Fairfield, this is Miss Beatrice Elwood. We're headed to your town." The sheriff nodded. "Fortunate timing on our part. We've been tracking those three since they robbed a stagecoach 2 days back." He looked at Beatrice with genuine concern. "You all right, miss?" "Yes, thank you," she managed, her heart still racing from the encounter. "Willow Springs is just a few hours' ride from here," Marshall said. "We'd be happy to escort you the rest of the way." As they rode together through the pine forest, Sheriff Marshall proved to be a font of information about their destination. Willow Springs, named for the natural springs surrounded by willow trees at its center, was a growing ranching community of about 300 souls. "Nothing like the mining towns," he assured them. "Steady folk mostly. Ranchers, farmers, tradespeople. We've got a small but decent hotel, general store, and a new church being built. The town's been trying to get a permanent teacher for nearly a year now." Beatrice exchanged a glance with Noah, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I was a teacher in Silver Creek," she said. "Mr. Fairfield mentioned you were looking for one." The sheriff's weathered face broke into a wide smile. "Well now, that's the best news I've heard in months. Town council would want to meet with you, of course, but I can tell you they're desperate enough not to be particular about references." By late afternoon, they crested a hill that revealed Willow Springs nestled in a verdant valley below. Unlike the haphazard layout of many frontier towns, Willow Springs had been built with intention, a proper main street lined with wooden buildings, side streets with modest homes, and several larger ranch houses visible on the outskirts. "Not what I expected," Beatrice admitted as they descended toward the town. "Folks here believe in building something to last," the sheriff explained. "Most came from back east with plans, not just dreams." Their arrival in town drew curious looks from locals going about their business. Sheriff Marshall led them to a 2-story building with Willow Springs Hotel painted in neat letters across its front. "Mrs. Donovan runs the place," he explained. "Fairest rates in 3 counties and the best apple pie you'll ever taste." He tipped his hat to Beatrice. "I'll let the town council know you're here, Miss Elwood. They'll likely want to meet tomorrow if that suits." After the sheriff departed, Noah helped Beatrice down from her horse, their hands lingering together a moment longer than necessary. "You didn't mention you were planning to stay," Beatrice said quietly. Noah shrugged, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Thought I might see if the Double T Ranch still needs hands. Been on the move a long time, might be nice to stay put for a while." The warmth that spread through Beatrice's chest at his words surprised her. After days on the trail together, the thought of Noah simply riding on had become increasingly unsettling. Mrs. Donovan, a plump, energetic woman in her 50s, welcomed them warmly to her establishment. "A teacher, you say? Praise the Lord. My grandson's been running wild without proper schooling for months now." She showed Beatrice to a small but clean room on the 2nd floor, refusing payment when she learned of Beatrice's circumstances. "You can settle up when you get your first month's wages," the older woman insisted. Town pays teachers $25 a month plus room and board once the schoolhouse edition is finished. That evening, Beatrice and Noah shared dinner in the hotel's small dining room. The simple meal of roast beef, potatoes, and fresh bread seemed like a feast after days of trail rations. "What will you do if the ranch doesn't need help?" Beatrice asked as they lingered over coffee. Noah considered the question. "There's always work for a man willing to do it. Might try my hand at carpentry again. Worked with a master builder in Santa Fe for a winter." He studied her face in the lamp light. "What about you? Think you'll like teaching here?" "I hope so," she replied honestly. "I enjoy working with children, and after what happened in Silver Creek." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "I need to belong somewhere again." The next morning, Beatrice met with the town council 5 men representing Willow Springs' various interests. Unlike the cold dismissal she'd received from Silver Creek's leadership, these men were welcoming and practical. "We've got 26 children of school age," explained Mr. Peterson, the council head and owner of the general store. "Ages 6 to 16. The older boys only attend during winter months when ranch work is slower. We can offer a 6-month contract to start," added Mr. Fleming, a banker whose manner reminded Beatrice uncomfortably of those in Silver Creek. "Renewable if both parties are satisfied." "And your previous teaching experience?" inquired Dr. Williams, the town physician. Beatrice straightened her shoulders, determined to present herself as competent despite her recent humiliation. "I taught for 3 years in Silver Creek. Before that, I assisted at my own school in Pennsylvania until we moved west." There was a brief, awkward silence before Sheriff Marshall, who sat with the council, spoke up. "Miss Elwood was recently forced to leave Silver Creek due to financial hardship after losing her parents. I believe that speaks to her character that she's already seeking honest work rather than less respectable options available to women alone on the frontier." The men nodded in understanding, and Beatrice felt a rush of gratitude toward the sheriff. "Well, Miss Elwood," Mr. Peterson said, "I believe I speak for the council when I say Willow Springs would be pleased to have you as our teacher. School term starts in 2 weeks, which should give you time to prepare and settle in." As Beatrice left the town hall, she found Noah waiting outside, his hat in his hands. "How did it go?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "They offered me the position," she replied, unable to keep the relief from her voice. "I start in 2 weeks." Noah's smile was genuine. "I knew they would. You have a way about you, Beatrice Elwood, smart but kind with it." The compliment brought color to her cheeks. "And you, any luck with the ranch?" "Better than luck," he replied. "The foreman at Double T lost his assistant to marriage last month. Needs someone who can handle men as well as cattle." He seemed almost surprised by his good fortune. "It's year-round work with a cabin of my own once I prove myself." Over the following days, Beatrice threw herself into preparing for her new role. The schoolhouse, though simple, was well built and equipped with basic supplies. The town had collected books over the years, creating a modest library for the students. Each evening, she would share dinner with Noah at the hotel, exchanging stories of their day and slowly learning more about each other. On Sunday, Noah invited her for a ride to see the countryside around Willow Springs. They followed a stream that wound through meadows dotted with wildflowers until they reached a small lake nestled against the foothills. "It's perfect," Beatrice said as they spread a simple picnic on a blanket near the shore. "I never thought I'd feel this way again after leaving Silver Creek, like I might belong somewhere." Noah was quiet for a moment, skipping a stone across the lake's surface. "When I first headed west, I thought I was looking for adventure. Took me years to realize I was really searching for a place that felt like home." "And does this?" Beatrice asked, gesturing to the landscape around them. "It might," he replied, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But I'm starting to think home isn't so much about the place as the people you share it with." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither had acknowledged during their journey. Beatrice found herself noticing details about Noah she'd overlooked before: the small scar near his right eyebrow, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the careful gentleness of his hands despite their strength. "Beatrice," he said softly, using her first name in that direct way of his, "I've been thinking a lot about why I decided to stay in Willow Springs." "The ranch position seemed perfect for you," she offered, though she sensed he meant something else entirely. "The job's fine enough," he agreed. "But that's not why I stayed." He took a deep breath. "When I found you on the trail that night, I was just trying to help someone in need. Didn't expect to find someone who'd make me question everything about my wandering life." Beatrice's heart hammered in her chest. "Noah, let me finish, because I might lose my nerve," he said with a half smile. "I've never had much in the way of possessions, never stayed in one place long enough to build anything lasting. But these past 2 weeks, seeing you make a place for yourself here, watching how you light up when talking about your students or this town." He reached out, hesitantly taking her hand. "Makes me want things I never thought I'd want: a home, roots. A future that includes more than just the next job or the next town." The vulnerability in his expression moved Beatrice deeply. This man, who had faced war and wilderness, was laying his heart bare before her. "I care for you, Beatrice Elwood," he continued. "More than I thought possible in such a short time. I'm not a wealthy man, might never be. But if you could see your way to giving me a chance, I'd work every day to be worthy of it." Beatrice felt tears spring to her eyes, not from sadness but from an overwhelming sense of possibility she'd thought forever lost when she'd been cast out of Silver Creek. "When I was forced to leave everything behind," she said softly, "I thought I'd lost my chance at happiness. That I'd always be defined by what I didn't have." She squeezed his hand. "But you never saw me that way. From that first night you treated me as someone of value." "Because you are," Noah said with simple conviction. "Money comes and goes, character remains." Gathering her courage, Beatrice leaned forward and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was brief but filled with promise, and when she pulled back, Noah's expression of wonder mirrored her own feelings. "I care for you too," she whispered. "More than I should after knowing someone such a short time." "Time's a poor measure for some things," Noah replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face with gentle fingers. The school term began with 20 excited children filling the small schoolhouse. Beatrice found herself thriving in the role, appreciated by both students and parents in a way she never had been in Silver Creek. The town welcomed her as one of their own, inviting her to social gatherings and treating her with respect despite her lack of financial standing. Noah proved himself invaluable at the Double T Ranch, his experience with cattle and horses making him a natural leader among the ranch hands. True to their word, the ranch owner provided him with a small but sturdy cabin on the property after his first month of work. As autumn painted the surrounding hills in golds and reds, Noah invited Beatrice to dinner at his new home. He'd spent days preparing hunting a deer for the main course, gathering wild berries for pie, and even crafting a simple wooden vase for the wildflowers that adorned the table. "It's not much," he apologized as he showed her around the 2-room cabin. "But it's mine, first real home I've had since before the war." "It's wonderful," Beatrice assured him, touched by the effort he'd made to make the space welcoming. The cabin was simply furnished but clean, with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and windows that looked out on the mountains to the west. Over dinner, they talked about their new lives in Willow Springs and the approaching winter. As they lingered over coffee, Noah grew unusually quiet. "Is something wrong?" Beatrice asked, concerned by his sudden seriousness. "No," he assured her quickly. "Nothing wrong, just—" He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small wooden box. "I've been carrying this around for a week, waiting for the right moment." Beatrice's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple silver ring set with a small blue stone. "It's not fancy," Noah said, his voice slightly unsteady. "Had to save 3 weeks' wages, but the stone reminded me of your eyes." "Noah," Beatrice whispered, her own eyes filling with tears. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hand in his. "Beatrice Elwood, I know we haven't known each other long by some standards, but I've lived enough to recognize what matters. You matter to me more than anything or anyone has before." He took a deep breath. "I'm asking if you do me the honor of becoming my wife. I can't offer wealth or luxury, but I promise to work hard every day to build a good life with you." Through her tears, Beatrice smiled. "I don't need wealth or luxury, I just need you. Is that a yes?" Noah asked, hope lighting his features. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. They were married in Willow Springs' newly completed church just before Christmas, with the entire town turning out to celebrate. Sheriff Marshall gave the bride away, and Mrs. Donovan cried happy tears from the front pew. The town presented them with a wedding gift, a plot of land near the school where they could build a proper home of their own. As they danced at their wedding celebration, Noah held Beatrice close and whispered in her ear, "Remember when we first met, and you told me you'd been banished for being poor?" She nodded, the memory no longer painful but simply part of the journey that had brought them together. "I knew then what I know even more now," he continued. "You're the richest person I've ever met in all the ways that truly matter. And you're wealthy beyond measure in the same way," she replied, resting her head against his shoulder. Over the years that followed, Beatrice continued teaching the children of Willow Springs, while Noah eventually became foreman of the Double T Ranch. They built a modest but comfortable home on their gifted land, and welcomed 2 children of their own, a boy with Noah's quiet strength, and a girl with Beatrice's quick mind and gentle heart. Sometimes, travelers would pass through town from Silver Creek, bringing news of the once prosperous mining town. The silver had eventually played out, leaving many of the grand houses empty and businesses shuttered. Mayor Hargrove had lost his fortune in a banking panic and fled in the night, leaving his debts behind. When Beatrice heard these stories, she felt no satisfaction in the town's reversal of fortune, only a quiet gratitude for the twist of fate that had led her to the trail where Noah Fairfield had been tending his campfire. What had seemed like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of a life richer than she could have imagined, not in silver or gold, but in love, purpose, and belonging. On their 10th anniversary, Noah took Beatrice back to the lake where he had first declared his feelings for her. As they watched the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson, he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Any regrets?" he asked, a question he posed every year on this day. And as she always did, Beatrice looked up at the man who had seen her true worth when she had nothing, and replied with perfect honesty, "Not a single one."